Welcome Charter Board members and school leaders. The topic of this mini-course is Following Bylaws. The bylaws are the rules that the board adopts and sets forth to govern the school in compliance with applicable law. Failure to follow bylaws can lead to board member actions and decisions that put the school at risk. Would you like to review the law and learn ideas for helping your board follow bylaws? Would you like resources shared by another charter school? This mini-course may help you. In this mini-course, you will review the law, learn ideas, get resources, test your knowledge, and receive a certificate of completion. When reviewing the law, ideas, and resources, think about how you can help your board follow your school's bylaws. Let's start by reviewing the law. Minnesota Statutes Section 124E.06, Subdivision 2, requires that a charter school be organized and operated as a nonprofit corporation. Minnesota Statutes Section 317A.011, Subdivision 5, defines bylaws as the code adopted for the regulation or management of the internal affairs of a corporation. Minnesota Statutes Section 317A.181, Subdivision 1, states that initial bylaws may be adopted by a majority of the incorporators or the first board of directors. Note that board members are referred to as board directors in Minnesota statutes. The bylaws may contain provisions relating to the management or regulation of the affairs of the corporation consistent with law or the articles. Examples of provisions include, but are not limited to, the number of directors and their qualifications, manner of election, powers, duties, and board structure. Minnesota Statutes Section 124E.07, Subdivision 2, states that the initial board must begin the transition to the ongoing board structure by the end of the first year of operation. The board structure may be 1. A majority of qualified teachers, 2. A majority of parents, 3. A majority of community members, or 4. Have no clear majority. The law also states that the initial board must begin the transition to the ongoing board structure within 1 year and complete the transition by the end of the second year of operation. Furthermore, the terms for the length of time board members serve shall begin on July 1st and shall be no less than 2 years. Minnesota Statutes Section 124E.07, Subdivision 2, also states that the bylaws shall set the number of terms an individual may serve on the board. Additionally, the bylaws shall set the number of terms an individual may serve as an officer, for example, as chair, vice chair, treasurer, and secretary. Minnesota Statutes 124E.07, Subdivision 3, sets forth the minimum number of board members as 5, and restricts membership to 3 classes, which are teachers, parents, and community members. The law specifies that the ongoing board must include at least 1 licensed teacher that meets criteria specified in the law. The teacher must be employed by the school or provide at least 720 hours of service under a contract between the school and teacher cooperative. The teacher must be qualified, either serving as a teacher of record in a field in which the individual has a field license, or providing services to students as licensed to provide. The teacher must not serve in an administrative or supervisory capacity for more than 240 hours in a school calendar year. The law also specifies that the ongoing board must include at least 1 parent or legal guardian of a student enrolled in the school who is not an employee of the school. In addition, the law specifies that the ongoing board must include at least 1 interested community member. A community member serving on the board must reside in Minnesota, must not have a child enrolled in the school, and must not be an employee of the school. The chief administrator may only serve as an ex officio, non-voting board member, and no employees shall serve on the board other than the teachers. An individual is prohibited from serving on more than one charter school board at the same time in an elected capacity. A paid administrator or consultant may serve as an ex officio member on more than one board, only with the knowledge and 2/3 vote of approval of the boards involved. Minnesota Statutes Section 124E.07, Subdivision 4, states that the board structure must be defined in the charter school's bylaws. The bylaws must set forth whether the structure is 1. A majority of qualified teachers, 2. A majority of parents, 3. A majority of community members, or 4. No clear majority. Minnesota Statutes Section 124E.07, Subdivision 4, also states that board bylaws shall outline the process and procedures for changing the board's governance structure. A board may change its governance structure only if 3 conditions are met. There must be a majority vote of the board of directors, a majority vote of the licensed teachers employed and providing instruction to students, and authorizers' approval. Bylaws may be amended in the manner provided in the school's articles or bylaws, and in the absence of such provision, by a majority of directors. To summarize, why is it important for charter board members to follow bylaws? Bylaws provide the code or rules for the regulation or management of the internal affairs of the school. Bylaws set forth the membership, term length, composition, and structure of the board in compliance with applicable statutes. The initial board must begin the transition to the ongoing board structure by the end of the first year of operation and complete the transition by the end of the second year. The structure may be 1. A majority of qualified teachers, 2. A majority of parents, 3. A majority of community members, or 4. No clear majority. The process and procedures for changing the board's governance structure must be outlined in the bylaws. Changing the board's governance structure requires board, teacher, and authorizer approval. Next, let's look at some ideas that charter boards have shared to help develop and follow bylaws in line with statutes. Carefully align bylaws to Minnesota Statutes 124E, Charter School Law, to ensure that the school's bylaws do not conflict with laws applicable to charter schools. Include bylaw review in the annual board calendar and ensure that the bylaws comply with current statutes and that the board follows the bylaws. Use the bylaws to help clarify the board's role and responsibilities and the code of conduct for individual board members so that expectations are clear. Clarify the responsibilities of the board and those of management, and ensure that the board addresses general operation concerns without micromanaging. Utilize legal counsel to review school policies and bylaws to ensure that the bylaws do not conflict with laws applicable to charter schools or other school policies. Following are questions that you may want to ask to help your board follow the school bylaws in compliance with applicable laws. Has the school recently engaged legal counsel to review the bylaws for alignment with current Minnesota statutes, and do the bylaws need to be updated? What is the composition of the board in terms of how many members can serve from each class of membership? Is the board structure 1. A majority of qualified teachers, 2. A majority of parents, 3. A majority of community members, or 4. No clear majority? What are the lengths of each term, and are all board member terms at least 2 years long? Do all terms begin July 1st, as required by law? Do all board members meet requirements for serving on the board as a teacher, parent, or community member? According to the school's bylaws, what are the process and procedures for changing the board's governance structure? What do the bylaws say about board elections and filling vacant seats? And is the board following the bylaws? Have all board members carefully reviewed the bylaws, and do all board members understand them? Now that you have reviewed the law, learned ideas from other charter boards, and considered questions, let's consider ways you can support school success. By understanding your school's bylaws, you can help prevent unauthorized board member actions and support productive board work. By understanding your school's bylaws, you can help prevent complaints and challenges to board actions. In conclusion, here are some potential next steps. Review the bylaws as a board to ensure all board members understand the bylaws and that the school is following them. Engage legal counsel to review the bylaws for compliance with applicable law. Make sure bylaws are consulted when conducting elections, establishing duties and committees, and managing board vacancies. Compare and contrast your school's bylaws to examples from other Minnesota charter schools to gain and share ideas. Contribute your ideas and tools to help other charter schools follow bylaws. Information in this video is not intended to address specific questions or issues a particular school may be facing. Charter schools should work with their authorizer, auditor, financial service provider, and advisors, lawyer, and staff to address any specific issues and to obtain additional resources. We hope this information is helpful in following bylaws in compliance with applicable law.